Welcome to After the Pool, the video series where I share all my thoughts and opinions on the rest of the current comic books that I read for the current comic book week. Guys, I'm Mike Spiderslayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. If you love daily comic book content, you like me helping you make decisions of what comic books to buy, and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, guys, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit it now. Also, if you want to find out what my thoughts were on the newest issue 1 comic books for the week, check out the series called Worthy Ones. I post that on Thursdays. And if you haven't watched this past week's episode, I'll leave it at the end of this episode of After the Poll. So with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's get started. So welcome to the realm of Marvel Comics. That's where we kick it off every week. They had a decent amount of comics that were released this week, and I would say these books are probably one of their more higher tier characters. And the first book we're talking about today is Deadpool. This is issue 14. So when it comes to Deadpool, I felt like this is the best Deadpool series I have read in quite some time. I think Cody Ziegler's done a fun job with the book. He's created Deadpool, not only, well, he hasn't created Deadpool, but he created a supporting cast around Deadpool, like Taskmaster, Doug, his daughter Ellie, and then Princess. The artwork is a lot of fun to look at in this comic, and it does continue the storyline with Deadpool getting his revenge against the bad guy by the name of Death Grip. He is the one that actually killed Deadpool, and if it wasn't for Ellie, he would not be alive right now. So it is a lot of fun to look at. The colors are bright and vibrant, and just some of the hysterical moments between Taskmaster and the other characters is great. Doug is like the guy that's behind the scenes. He was like a micro influencer. Just a lot of fun moments in this comic book, and it definitely has some heart in there, which I feel like obviously in a Deadpool comic, you don't see that too often. So this book is a continue must read, especially since you've read it from the beginning, because it is ending at issue 15. So this is the penultimate issue. So the next issue we're going to get is 350. This was a solid book. I gave it a B. All right, the next one is X-Men issue 16. Now I predicted, yes, Jed MacKay does this all the time in his team books. He does this with the Avengers book. I've read way too many issues. In fact, 24 issues of it. And what we've seen multiple times in those Avengers book is there's new bad guys created to match up against the current roster of the Avengers. You get that here when it comes to the X-Men characters, right? You get introduced to these new characters that Cassandra Nova has acquired, right? And this is them all right here. And so obviously they're going to match up against your favorite X-Men characters, right? And you have like this one character by the name of Juice that tries to like suffocate you or whatnot. It's just kind of hysterical. But nevertheless, even though I've seen this story plot many times for Jed MacKay, for this particular issue, it was kind of fun because the artwork here by Nitho Diaz is actually really good, and I think he does a better job in this book than Ryan Stegman. Magneto does get his powers back temporarily. This is not a permanent fix here, and it was great to see Magneto actually do something in this comic besides being on a chair. And there's a 2-page spread with the characters battling, just like I predicted, right? The writing's on the wall here. This was a decent book. I like this one. I think I'm going to give this one a C+. The next one we're talking about is Storm. This is issue 8. Now, what this book is mainly the ramifications of X-Man Hunt, because Storm is actually being questioned for protecting him and other things that she's done in the past. So you wind up getting to see her being interrogated by like this FBI agent that's like, I don't know, some kind of alien or mutant or whatever it is. It's like he sucks up nitrogen, I think it is. And meanwhile, you got Maggot that's in her little like home world that she's at, her safe haven, doing some wrestling competition, which was actually kind of hysterical. But the interrogation scene was kind of intense, and I love seeing Storm being in control of the room here. And that's actually what made this comic book for me. It was like, oh yeah, this guy's got all the angles to put her behind bars. And no, that's not the case, man. She holds her own. And I really enjoyed that. Where to this book, it could have been a very boring book, but I loved it. And Storm is actually a really good book. This one gets a B+ from me. The next book that wasn't so hot last issue for me was issue 6 of West Coast Avengers, but I'm continuing to read it because overall I've enjoyed this series. So this is West Coast Avengers. This is issue 7. And in this book, we wind up seeing Wonder Man versus Blue Bolt in here. And I don't think we've seen Wonder Man in quite some time. And I think it was pretty cool to see him to try to take on this Blue Bolt character. And I think the fun thing about this book is you wind up learning a little bit more about Blue Bolt and kind of like where he came from, how his father was a little bit abusive, and his father also collected Wonder Man stuff, which I thought was so funny. And so he kind of like hates Wonder Man because his dad loved it so much. And he kind of got to see, how he wound up getting his powers in here and whatnot. So again, I thought this was a good book. It was very entertaining. And then you get the continuation of the Ultron storyline here on how they've separated and see Earthlings as a different point of view. And so you wind up getting to see the godlike Avenger go against this hell-like Avenger, and they start battling each other. Let's just say it's not looking good for the good guys here. And overall, it was fun. I really like this one. Another solid B. Again, these books are not groundbreaking or earth-shattering, but this was the first time in a while that Marvel has seemed to be doing pretty good for me to where I enjoyed all of these stories. The next one we're talking about is a big one here. This is All New Venom. This is issue 6. I think this is one of the books where you're either going to continue the series or you're going to drop the series based off of what you think of Mary Jane having the symbiote now. And you actually get that origin story on how she acquired the power and how the Venom symbiote kind of shorted out her technology that Paul made. What I like about this book is the funny ass relationship that the symbiote and Mary Jane have. They need each other to live. And there's this one scene in this comic book where Paul is just like, why are you sitting like that with each other? His hand is wrapped around her and everything, they're a couple, but they have to constantly touch or they're actually going to die. And you'll have to actually read that to find out really why that's going to happen. But you get the ins and outs of the story, which was really a lot of fun. It kind of makes sense. I give Al Ewing a lot of credit putting things together here, and I love how Paul is just shitted on in this entire comic book. Him, his technology, it's a kind of cringy knowing that him and Mary Jane are intimate with each other, but it was great on top of it when you see Dylan enters the room because he's your typical, teenager in here, and it's just awesome. I actually really like this book. I gave this one an A-. It's not perfect. It's a little convoluted. Not sure if I really agree with Mary Jane being the Venom symbiote, but I think I actually like it better than stupid jackpot power. And it looks like maybe this jackpot power might be out the door. Same with Paul, hopefully in the future. The next book that we're talking about is The Amazing Spider-Man. This is issue 3. So, first issue was pretty good. Second issue, I thought was kind of filler. And the third issue, it is what it is at this point. I'm not saying that it's bad, but with Spider-Man being poisoned and hallucinating the whole time, it kind of makes it a little bit hard, at least for me anyway, to follow exactly what's real, what's not real. Obviously, characters won't act certain ways because he is hallucinating. So when you're reading a flashback, you see a flashback of Aunt May, and you're like, wait a second, Aunt May would never act that way, but he's hallucinating, so you don't know what's right. You got this itsy bitsy spider character that's in here that maybe has the hots for Peter. I'm not sure, but that's the way she looks in the book, and she gives him this weird kiss, throws him off a bridge, like what's going on in there? And then you got some weird thing with Hobgoblin going on here, who wants to poison society with freaking energy drinks and stuff. I don't know, man. It's just kind of weird and a little bit all over the place. And I think that might be a little bit of a problem here. But Pepe Larraz's artwork is pretty decent in the book, and I do find myself intrigued on what's happening. Not the best book, but once again, I'm going to give this one a B-. I thought it was entertaining enough to be like, okay, you know, I feel like this is better than the last run, or starting off in the good way. And then I would say another pretty big book this week, again, is Ultimate Wolverine issue 5. The last issue, issue 4, it didn't sit well with me, right? I felt like there wasn't enough action in that comic book, not enough blood, not enough gore, and here you get introduced to Sabretooth in this world. And obviously, as a Wolverine fan, you're hoping that, oh, we're going to see this epic battle between Sabretooth and Wolverine, and you do get it, but maybe in a little bit of a different fashion, and you get to see Sabretooth, who maybe is not such this mean badass after all. It's like he's more of a good guy, and you wind up seeing Wolverine going after Sabretooth in this issue. And it was a pretty intense fight. We don't get the normal artist on the book, which I think is kind of a drawback. So once again, I'm not saying that this book was bad, but I don't think it quite lived up to the potential that maybe people were hoping for in this book. So I really want to know in the comments below, what did you think of this issue of Ultimate Wolverine? Was it everything that you thought it would be, or were you a little disappointed by it? I kind of was. I gave this one a C+. I wasn't like overly, I don't know, thrilled by it, but it wasn't bad either, and I do want to see how the story continues to develop. Welcome to the realm of DC Comics, and this week, another small week for DC. Now, upon this recording, I got back late from a dance competition on Sunday night, and I didn't get a chance to read Poison Ivy. But I read the other two DC comic books, and let's talk about the first one, Green Lantern, or Absolute Green Lantern. This is issue 2, so I was very curious to see what the second issue had to offer. You get a much different Hal Jordan in this book. He's more like the Black Hand character. He's being possessed by this black power or whatnot, and it's hard for him to contain himself. And when he feels threatened, what happens is he'll start attacking random people. You also get introduced to Abin Sur in the comic book, which is quite interesting. And he's kind of like the judge, jury, and executioner of what's happening. Guy Gardner is a freaking sheriff in this town, and it's just a much different and insane comic book, right? And it's also very dark. They're not afraid of murdering people or showing people getting hurt in this book. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. I thought it was quite interesting. I actually really liked it. And I think that's why I like it so much, is because it's different from what we've been getting when it comes to the regular everyday Green Lantern. So again, I think some people might be on the fence because it's very anime or manga, but I really enjoyed this one. And again, I have so many questions. And what's next for Hal Jordan and Joe Mullins and all the other cast of characters in the comic book? So at the end of the day, I want to give this one an A-. I feel like this is a must read when it comes to the Absolute Universe. Then the next one we're talking about here is Absolute Superman. This is issue 7. My gosh, this book was a lot when it came to Brainiac. And I feel like if you like the Brainiac character, you're going to absolutely love this book. If you're not a fan of Brainiac, well, I don't know. I don't think you're going to like it. Because it really goes into the history of this particular Brainiac character, kind of like where he came from, how he was created, how long he was doing a crappy job for. This is the way he looks these days, and it's just absolutely insane. And I love how he's like obsessed with Superman and trying to find out about him. But I think the book again does a great job at explaining who the character is, where he came from, and again, it was just a lot of fun. And what this book does very well is it continues to flesh out those characters. And as the reader of a comic book, that's what you want. You want to be connected to those characters. Brainiac is a very horrific type of character also. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. It's always a top pick for me. My favorite Absolute book so far. I gave this one an A+. Welcome to that crazy world of independent comics. That's right, guys. And the first book we're talking about today is Jump Scare. We're on issue 3. This book is just a lot of fun. If you love horror comics, if you love horror movies, and you like the superhero field, you got a mashup between both things here. And we learn about our main character who is trying to rescue her sister from the character Grindhouse. It's such a funny movie. Such a crazy name for a character, right? And we get to see more of her powers being used. And what we find out in this particular issue is Grindhouse doesn't want to battle her. He wants to team up with her because there's some bigger, badder monsters that want to capture them and make them into something else. So before you wind up getting to that proposal, you just get to see lots of action, lots of brawling, great facial features in here. Just love how our main character thinks of all types of different horror weapons from past horror movies, and it's just great, and it's a lot of fun, and it's just something different. This is a great book. I would recommend it. I gave this one an A. All right, the next one we're talking about is Uncanny Valley. This is issue 9. The only problem with this book is it doesn't come out every month, so I feel like it loses its momentum a little bit. But once you read it, you're kind of like, oh, I remember what's going on. So Oliver is our main character here. He winds up getting captured by the First, who is the first bad cartoon villain. They're going to use Oliver for some kind of ceremony. Meanwhile, you wind up getting Grandpa Cartoon and the mom, I forgot her name, and they're going to team up together, and they're going to try to stop this character before this ritual happens. And I love the interactions here between Grandpa and the mom, because it's like the grandfather's like, do you remember how to, shake off wounds? Can you make yourself go flat? Can you, do all these things that a cartoon requires you to do in order to beat the First? And again, if you're not familiar with the First, that's the character right there. And she's like, yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. I got to save my son. And it's just very creative. It's just very different. Again, same thing like Jump Scare, right? It's just like stuff that you haven't read before. And I feel like, obviously, at this point in time, that's what sets apart, these indie comics is what sets apart DC and Marvel comics, because the stories are so creative. I really like this one. It was an awesome read. I definitely would recommend Uncanny Valley. I don't think you're going to find back issues of this, but when it comes out in a full trade, definitely read this. This one gets another A from me. It just gets held back because of the delay that happens like every other month or 2 months or something like that. Another really good and emotional comic book, and it gets more emotional as time goes along, is The Moon is Following Us. This is issue 9. Here we wind up getting to see Penny and Duncan continue to try, not Penny and Duncan, Samantha and Duncan, husband and wife, try to rescue their daughter Penny, who is in a coma state, stuck in this like dream land. And in this book, it's basically just balls to the walls action. They're trying to escape. They get Penny. They're trying to get back home to wake her up. And, Duncan, if you've read the series, he died in the last issue. And then something happens at the end of this bad boy where you were surprised, and then you're kind of let down again. I don't want to give away the main plot of what's happening at the end, but my God, it pulls at the heartstrings, and you're just like, oh, Jesus, I can't believe that happened again. But when you look at the artwork in this book, it's really good. Daniel Warren Johnson is the artwork that I prefer in this comic book, but Riley Warsmo's artwork in this series, it really works. I've really grown attached to it, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel like the artwork has improved as time goes along. So I would definitely recommend this book any day of the week. This one is a top pick for me. A+, really loved it, and I really loved how it ended up. All right, the next one we're talking about today, and people ask me this a lot actually, is Pop Kill worth the money? And I would say yes. Absolutely gorgeous cover here by Adam Hughes, but there's not just a cover by. This book caught me by surprise. It's done by Mad Cave, and it's written by Jimmy Palmiotti and Dave Johnson, okay? The artwork inside, I wouldn't say it's always like the best artwork or the most detailed artwork, but it doesn't matter. It does enough to get the job done, and it does keep you engaged while you're reading it, and the story is absolutely entertaining. It reminds me almost like a spy book, a comedy. I can't even take the plot serious sometimes because I never thought they would go into such detail over two soda companies, or I should say 3 soda companies going at war with each other. And it's 2 twin brothers. Actually, they're joined at the arm with each other, and their buildings are right across from each other, and they're literally at war with each other. And they will stop at nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing to get one up on the soda company here. You got to finish first. Second's not good. And it's just awesome. And again, action ramps up in this book, and you actually learn about the 2 soda brothers in here, the owners, how they were joined at the arm, how one resented each other, how one mom liked the one over the other. And it was great to see that character growth, because in a book like this, it's very easy to have the main antagonist in this book sit there and go, oh, well, who cares about these guys, right? So obviously, it's a very good book. I really loved it, and I definitely recommend it. Maybe not for a younger audience, of course, but definitely a really fun book to read. I give Pop Kills another top pick, right? This was another A+. Has me intrigued every single page. All right, here we go. Moving on to a book that took forever to come out, and this was Rick Remender's Grommets. This was issue 7, the conclusion to this book. This is a book where if you grew up in the time frame, you're gonna really love it. And I think even though you might not be in this time frame, I still think they did a great job at telling this story visually and storytelling, right? I mean, it was just absolutely awesome. It's about these kids that grew up in the 80s, or a bunch of skaters, and they got into big trouble with the bullies at school. And it forces them to some of the kids to leave town, right? And it's just like, oh man, you're going through school, you had your best buds, and now you're moving away. I mean, we all know what that's like, right? It doesn't matter what generation you grew up in. You had your set of core friends, and if you move during high school, that sucks, right? And so he's gonna move away from his best friends. He's just having his first real relationship, that he's hooking up with this girl. And as you remember as a kid, that stuff is very impactful. Those are those core memories that we talk about. And then before he moves away, he shares one last skate ride with his best bud and whatnot. I mean, this book is awesome, man. I absolutely loved it. So good. It hits the feels, man. It has all the feels, as they would say, right? So good. Absolutely love this book. I give this one the top pick of the week. A+, another one. These indie books these days are just at a whole other level, and every single one of them has been top notch for me. But like I said, Grommets is just awesome. A great conclusion to this series. If you grew up in the 80s, if you're a skater guy, or if you just want a good slice of life book, I think you're gonna like this one for sure. So there you have it, guys. There are my thoughts on the rest of the comic books this week. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I always love reading those comments. And of course, guys, if you love the content, more content's always right here. Just like I promised, there's the Worthy Ones episode in case you missed it this past week. And of course, guys, remember, support the local comic shops. Keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, read your comics so we can have great comic conversation just like we did today.